Welcome back to the show called Unleashing Your Full Potential. I'm your host, Doc, and with me, the one and only Brady Speller. Hello, Brady, all the way from the US of A.
Hello, Doc Anthony. How are you, my brother?
I am extremely well. We had so many people commenting on the previous take in terms of when we spoke about artificial intelligence that people ask us to take it to the next level to make it more practical for them. So, thank you for your background study on really putting AI into the modern workforce. More, let's say, the future of work. So when we look at the future of work, do you believe things are going to change, Brady?
Oh, Doc, things are already changing, and they're changing fast and furious. You know, there's a movie out there. So they got 10 episodes of Fast and Furious. It's
Absolutely.
changing fast and it's changing furiously. And I guess the concern that I would have as a professional is how do you not just how do you keep up, but how do you get your workforce ready and engaged and involved for what's coming down the pipe or what's already here. We're already behind the eight ball. So when we talk about the future of work, my focus and your focus are, we've always been involved in the human capital development,
True.
HCM, human capital management. And if you don't develop the skills of your workforce, there's no way in the world people are going to be able to keep up with the changes that are taking place. So at the point that I want to emphasize, and I want you to be able to ask questions, I've got certain topics that I want to cover, but as artificial intelligence, rapidly transforms the global workforce, organizations are going to have to figure out how they're going to reskill and upskill
Mm.
their people, their employees, which are supposed to be their greatest asset.
Well, let's
Okay.
let
They
let's
had
just bounce something around because there's something that comes to my mind because obviously we're dealing with a high level um, influence in the world in terms of artificial intelligence. Do you
Mhm.
think there is wisdom in the senior management basically putting it in the think scrum, working it out, and leaving out, can I say, the lower levels? Or do you believe a hybrid of the lower levels doing their own, the high level doing theirs, and then coming together and discussing it? What do you think could be a wise future in terms of basically talking about AI in the work?
I've always believed, Doc, and my philosophy has been top down and bottom up, meet them in the middle. Everything needs to meet in the middle. Because
Absolutely.
if you, yeah, but we talked about this last time. If the folks at the top of the organization are the only ones thinking and developing the concepts or the business case and the ideas for what's happening around AI and what the workforce needs, they're going to miss it. They're
And
going to miss it.
and also there's
The people who
people
are close.
that are in the trenches who've got the experience, who's been there, and they might even have solutions in terms of a new uh, blending, a new approach, a new angle that senior manager may not even have thought of.
Absolutely right. It's the people who are closest to the work. I call them the subject matter experts, as we all know. These are the
You,
people who are close to the work.
do you remember the Johnson and Johnson example where Johnson and Johnson's baby powder, the company was battling financially, and basically the tea girl came in, and the guys would talk about what do we do, how do we increase sales, do we cut staff, how do we approach it? And she said, "Well, I'm a mother; it's quite easy. Just make the hole bigger." And I mean, what do you mean? She says, "Well, I've got babies, and when I have to really shake it to get the powder out, just make the holes bigger." Brady, within 3 months, they actually solved the problem in the company because sales went up by 43% because they made the holes bigger. And that came from the bottom up.
Yeah, I keep telling you, Doc, that's a perfect business case. That's a perfect example of engaging your workforce. When we talk about change and transformation,
Yeah.
the first element of change is stakeholder engagement.
Okay.
You have to involve the people who know the work, who are closest to the work. If you do not, you're going to miss. Okay. So at the end of the day, they're now they may not be familiar at this point in time with the ins and outs of artificial intelligence. I think I would venture to say probably 90% of the world's population really not yet familiar with the capabilities of AI.
Yes, I don't think
We
they
hear,
are.
yeah, we hear about AI driven machines, cars, potentially replacing human drivers. I just saw something on the internet the other day in San Francisco of driverless vehicle
Yeah,
going down
no,
the street.
it's there. But the thing, it's going to come all the way down. So I think the topic to start with tonight is disruption. It's a truth.
Yeah,
There is disruption, and how do you actually advise that we take care of disruption?
that's right. So as AI continues to become increasingly capable of performing mundane tasks, I think there's going to be the demand for the human skills such as creativity, critical thinking, EQ, emotional intelligence will obviously grow.
Mhm.
And industries that rely on things like personal services and human interaction, that's hospitality, customer service, customer support, will probably prove more resilient to AI disruption than some of the others, right?
Okay,
But
because
at the end,
obviously you know that emotional quotient, EQ, is already a problem. That we have such a fast pace that the world is changing, that there's so much pressure on people, both at home and then in the workplace, that the emotional quotient is tested. And we're seeing disruption in terms of, if I call of the human capital management point aside, there's more fights, there's more anger, there's more conflict resolution needed than ever before.
that's right. That's right, Doc. And so how do you go about the process of not just investing in reskilling your organization, but also fostering a culture of continuous learning?
Mhm.
Because, I think one of the things that people are criticizing social media for, particularly with the Gen Z and the millennials,
Mhm.
they've been used to this technology for quite some time. They've been operating on their phones for, you know, 15, 20 years and or longer. Like my son is 42 years old. Everything is on the phone. He doesn't even have a laptop.
True.
And so if I think about where the younger generation is in terms of the adaptation to the new technologies, one of the pieces that's missing is the EQ, the emotional intelligence and the interaction with people as opposed to just the interaction with the actual tool itself. Okay.
Very
So
true.
when we talk about, yeah, fostering a culture of continuous learning and adaptability is going to be absolutely critical in the workplace for your workforce to be able to not only keep up, but to drive the change that's taking place in the org that needs to take place in the company.
I can only fully agree with you because you see, if you look around, I call this the look down generation. Whenever we go, people are walking in the street and everybody's looking down at their phones. People are not
Here they
making
are.
eye contact anymore. People are not, where
Right.
people bump into each other. It really is a new approach in terms of, because especially as you say, the new millennials, etc., they are so engrossed in their new technology that they carry with them at all times that they sort of,
Mhm.
the human side is going down and the information side is going up. And I
Mhm.
do believe that the approach has to be different because with
Mhm.
artificial intelligence taking over, there's going to be more information, higher speed, higher resolution, and they're going to be more bound to their tools at their disposal. And I think that the emotional quotient and the intelligence side of it definitely is going to possibly be under the microscope. And I think that's where people like you and me come in to say, guys, artificial intelligence is fantastic. The world is expanding at a rapid rate, but the new workforce, what is the number one thing that we have to bring into the equation? And we're talking about intelligence, and that is the emotional side of hold on, that the younger people are, in a sense, becoming a little bit, I can say, cold in
Yeah.
relationships. Like my son is also 42, like yours. And I mean,
Mhm.
it's on the phone all the time. And you literally have to say, excuse me. And like I've had to make the statement, if you don't have my eyes, you don't have my mind,
That's right.
because of how people get engrossed in the actual devices that they use.
That's right. That's right. Doc, and you know what? We could talk about this one on a separate subject all day long. But I think the when we start bringing these concepts together, we start bringing this stuff together, is the new workforce for the 21st century is this group.
True.
These are the people, these are the young people that are going into the workforce now and beginning to, find their way, all right, and
And
developing their careers.
and we have to equip them. So obviously now we're talking
Right.
about job creation because we're talking about their careers. We have to create jobs that are suitable to them, not necessarily to us. I can tell you, we're going to be old school. There's going to be new jobs, new job titles coming out, and there'll be
That's
new
right.
roles and new responsibilities. So can you just take us through your thought process of some new kind of titles, some new kind of jobs that may come into the equation that we haven't even thought about?
Absolutely. Doc, I got to tell you, about 6 months ago, I had no idea what a prompt engineer was. I'd never
Prompt.
heard of it before, right?
Okay. So
Right?
I
So,
understand being prompt, but a prompt engineer is a different
but
story.
a prompt engineer, right? What is that, right? Okay,
Okay.
so that caused me to start looking around. I have a friend of mine that I work with, and he's a data analytics type of guy. So he's done a lot of research and dug in to this subject, but he and I share information.
Mhm.
So, AI is automating, as we know, AI is automating tasks, creating new job categories and opportunities, but it's requiring a blend of technical expertise and unique human skills, right?
Sure.
So so if AI is taking away a lot of the mundane tasks and repetitive stuff that people have been doing that are, not exactly creative, so to speak, what
Yeah.
does that do? It begins to create a whole new realm of job categories. One of them is a deep learning engineer. What is that? That's a person who develops and optimizes deep learning models and architectures for various applications.
Okay.
What?
Well, I mean,
Right?
come on. So we learn. I mean, even a prompt engineer would be someone that would prompt. I'd say they're asking the right question to get the right answer. That's what I'm going to
Hey,
assume as a prompt engineer.
okay, so yeah, the real definition is crafting effective prompts and instructions for AI models to generate desired outputs and behaviors.
Absolutely.
Listen
And
to generate
behaviors.
desired outputs and behaviors. So the assumption is that the intelligence is constantly learning.
Sure.
And if it's constantly learning, then the people who are putting in these prompts are asking questions that's causing the information to gather itself together to continue to come up with new answers and to learn
Yeah.
over time.
Well, it's
It's scary, but it's innovative.
quite true. I'll give you an example.
Mhm.
I actually asked ChatGPT the other day to write something in the tone of a Jim Rohn. Every single address or chapter started with ladies and gentlemen, because guess what? Jim Rohn always started with ladies and gentlemen. Then I
Right?
said, okay, that's very interesting. I thought, okay, let me try Tony Robbins. You not believe it actually was upbeat. It was motivation of nature. It was a total different ball game. So that equation of prompting it, you can even prompt it and look at through what character, in other words, which behavioral style do you choose to project through what you're trying to depict.
That is absolutely right. So it's scary? It's scary, but it's absolutely intriguing that machines would have the personality covered. And in terms of, it's going to go in, it's going to find words, it's going to find phrases, it's going to find some level of creativity. So when you go to ChatGPT, for example, and it says, do you want a creative response? Do you want a precise response? Or do you want a balanced response? Well, what does all of that mean?
Exactly, exactly. But it just
So,
shows you that if we're talking about tonight in the context of what does a new workforce look like, then
mhm,
it's obvious that the new workforce needs to be sensitized to artificial intelligence. Number one, here are the capabilities, here are possibly limitations, but also here's
mhm,
what's going to take the industry to the top level. And then to balance it with coming in with the capital side in terms of low EQ and high EQ, and then matching those two. And it's a marriage of those two that literally will come to the solution. Because you're not talking about new roles and responsibilities, we're talking about new job titles. But
that's
now,
right.
very much as the job title is new, the people learning about the job title need to also say, what kind of person is more suitable to that kind of output or that kind of job?
So watch this. Okay, so it's going to vary because some of these jobs are going to be real deep and technical. Okay, so your typical engineer type, for example, the deep learning engineers know about learning models, architectures for various applications. So they're more of your programmer types. Okay,
Okay.
chatbot developers may be designing and implementing conversational AI systems for customer service and support. Again, still an engagement. So there's two parts to that skill. There's a technical skill, but then there's also a customer service mindset or
That's true.
service leader mindset, right? Your prompt engineers are crafting prompts and instructions for AI for the desired outputs. And so those people are probably more inquisitive, the more scientific type. And think about, okay, what if? What if I ask this question? What kind of answer do I get? So they're the exploratory type. Then you got data analysts and you got AI artists. Now, this one is very, very interesting. Artificial intelligence artists will leverage different tools that are out there to create unique and compelling visual content. Very, very interesting.
There's
I can
scary
give
stuff. There's very, very scary stuff going on right now. I mean, I've just been part of a series where a person's gone and taken one title, but it's able to actually devise 30 different looks, 30 different approaches from an artistic perspective. Whereas
yeah,
in the human capacity, in the brain of the human, you sort of form the picture, but this meticulous shifting and moving and augmenting a new look, but with 30 different approaches, is beyond the call of development and artistic flair. It's just next level.
it is absolutely next level. But but there's a caveat to that, what you just said, Doc. If you think about it from an ethics perspective,
Okay.
what are the ethics that AI is going to challenge? Okay, so we're talking about already deep fake videos. In the political realm, people are coming out with videos that make you think someone is doing something that we're not doing at all. And then they've got to be on the defensive to try to challenge that video to say that this is a deep fake video. How can you tell? And the more the artificial intelligence continues to learn movement, body language, things of that nature, the speech patterns and the mouthing, the stuff is going to get better and better and better, going to get more refined. That's the scary part. So when we talk about ethics, we talk about ensuring the responsible development and deployment of AI systems, addressing the issues of fairness, transparency, and accountability. And that word accountability becomes absolutely critical, at least in my mind, that people need to be held accountable for the content that they put out. One of the challenges we have with social media platforms, anything goes.
True.
Put out whatever you want.
In fact, the one area that is a gray area, and I think is going to be a tough one, is copyright, because of the resources from where all the information is being sourced from. I can tell you that by myself, in terms of I'm writing on a topic and I get AI to help me. By the time that I ask, give me references of inclusion, I get like a rainbow of books, authors, etc., of little bits of information that was digested from each one of those, which
That's right.
where you and I, in our capacity, if we were consultative of nature, we would actually go and speak to 4 or 5 other specialists in the area, extract what we can, and then basically put forth a paper or an idea, whatever it is. But artificial intelligence seems to just be able to do that times 10. It's just so much faster and so much bigger. So coming back to the new roles and responsibilities, how do we integrate this stuff? What differences we now hear? There's different job titles, and we need to ask: are people skilled to handle those new jobs? So for me now, the human side now all of a sudden becomes a greater demand in terms of, hold on, let's talk about what kind of skill set is required for this kind of job. I mean, the prompter clearly can be any behavioral type, but the person who's in the design side needs to have sort of a technical and a creative side, so we can sort of feel the profiling side. The one question that comes to my mind is, what about the strategist? The strategist, and whether, if you look at the 4 behavioral types: driver, influencer, support, and conscientious. I mean, strategy, all 4 of those people have strategy, but in different ways.
That's right.
So now, how does that come to play with responsibility and skill set? Let me hear you on that.
So one of the things that that the new information out there talks about is this demand for professionals, and whether you're a strategist, whether you're an actual doer, a technician, an engineer, or just a manager, for example. Okay, there's a demand for professionals now with the advent of AI who can bridge the gap between the technology and the human understanding. that's going to grow significantly as AI advances. Okay. And so like these roles are going to require a combination of technical skills. There's going to be part of it's going to wind up being programming and data analytics, but also soft skills,
Okay.
creativity, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, like we were talking about earlier. So you have this cornucopia of skill sets that are shifting, because typically, if you think about it in the past, Doc, engineers have never been known for being the most creative, the most emotionally intelligent people.
People, yeah, they're people skills. They're sort of, can I say, a little bit cold, a little bit reserved. You really need to get inside or on the inside of how they think before you see the twerk and the smile, because they're so
Before you,
focused on getting the systems go. A goes to B, B goes to C. I mean, with those guys, they don't just jump from A to Z. It doesn't work that way. They are programmed.
they
A,
go A plus
B,
B plus
C.
C plus D
Yeah,
equals E, right? It's a very logical pattern to their thinking.
correct,
Okay.
correct.
So it's more utilization of the left side of the brain. Whereas on the right side of the brain, there's a lot of improvisation, there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of, connecting with the environment and assessing information or processing information in such a way that gives you these bursts of creativity. But what's happening with artificial intelligence, the advent of it, is going to force people to start bringing those skill sets together, the technical side as well as the more creative side. And as you do that, so it's going to demand, watch this. This is the real interesting part.
Okay.
AI is expected to create 20 to 50 million new jobs by 2030.
How many?
20 to 50 million new jobs by 2030.
So what you're
And it's,
saying is that 95% of the jobs that we have today will not even exist.
yep. Well, I'm not saying it won't exist, but I'm saying that it's going to, okay, but here's the data that I've heard. 350 million jobs are going to be impacted by AI.
Okay.
The potential of going away, right? But now on the other side, it's only going to create 20%, 10%, 50%, yeah, like 20 to 50 million new jobs globally. So what does that do? You've got this massive jobs of 350 million positions that could potentially be impacted by AI. What are you going to do with those positions? Where are those people going to go? When only 20 to 50 million new jobs are going to be created. So I'm not saying that the 350 million will just die off, but these people are going to have to reshape their thinking. They're going to have to reshape their skill set. They're going to have to come up with something new, and they're going to have to reinvent themselves in order to be a part of the new job market. So now watch this. This leads into which industries are going to be impacted most by artificial intelligence: healthcare, finance, and technology. The job growth will be driven by the need for human involvement in AI development, deployment, and oversight, ensuring that AI systems are effective, responsible, and aligned with organizational goals, Doc. So at the end of the day, you may have 350 million jobs that are going to be impacted, but there's going to be a creation of 20 to 50 million new jobs.
Correct.
So there's going to be a shift. There's a tectonic shift that's happening that people need to be aware of.
But we saw something when we spoke last time, and that is that you cannot just purely depend on AI. There has to be the human capital side, because it's the human capital side that actually brings it into perspective and it brings it into, I can say, into the productivity norms of what is right, what is wrong, what can be done. Because remember, we can push people. The human being, the 888 principle. You're supposed to work 8 hours. You're supposed to sleep 8 hours, and you're supposed to the other 8 hours, to get you 24 hours. But the thing is, I believe the computer's got the ability to work all the time, which the human does not have. And therefore, we're now going to find that, number one, people are going to start working longer hours to try and compete, but they're competing against a wall, because they will not be able to maintain the pace with durability. They have to say to themselves, what is my best area of skill? What is the skill set I bring into the equation? And rather bring quality into the situation rather than quantity. So
There you go.
I think you're going to have some human behavior assessments happening of people
That's
saying,
right.
what am I good at and what am I excellent at? But good at is not going to be good enough anymore. Like Jim Collins, from good to great. You're going to find now that we're only going to operate on the areas where we were great because the good has been taken care of
That's right.
artificially. So I think
Right.
it's going to be that blend, and everything's going to have a higher quality, a higher standard, and a higher
That's right.
speed of effectivity. It has to be.
It absolutely has to be and will be, Doc. And this is a thing that's going to challenge human beings. I mean, look, if you think about it, this is from a revolution perspective. They call this what, the fourth or the third industrial revolution. I can't remember which one's the fourth wave of technology, but
Fourth wave,
third
yeah,
industrial, yeah, but the third industrial revolution. Because, and each time that there's been this tectonic shift in the development of new industry or new technology, and they adapt.
they do.
Okay,
Now, there's the word I was looking for: adaptability.
exactly.
Adaptability now becomes not a study of science; it becomes a necessity.
It'd be
Because
absolutely.
if the human is not able to adapt to the situation, to adapt to the new language, adapt to the new speed, adapt to the new demands, I think that we'll have a situation where, although there's 350 million jobs, the adaptability is what's going to cause the migration from what I used to do to what I'm doing. So the people are more adaptable will survive first.
You hit the nail on the head. So we talk about the organizations got to invest. All right. If you talk about investing in what? Comprehensive training and reskilling programs,
Yeah,
enabling their workforce to get the necessary skills and to adapt to evolving demands for an AI-driven job market. What does that mean? What is that? Let me tell you what that tells me. That tells me that companies and or individuals, if you're not a solopreneur, entrepreneur, whatever the case may be, you're going to need to change your skill set. You're going to need to add. You just can't get by with the way things used to be. You're
yeah,
going to have to sit down and take some courses. And courses are now being developed at a rocket ship pace because more and more people are starting to understand that I'm going to be impacted by my ability to be able to provide for my family
true.
and for my well-being as an individual in order to stay alive, number one, in order to thrive, and then be able to support my family and be able to send my kids into the future. So if companies are smart, and I believe they are, the business case for developing their workforce's talent and skills, that means that's going to require investment on their part.
Yeah,
They're going to have to invest.
but there's two things. That
Yeah,
business case demands one, reskilling, two, upskilling. The
that's right.
two, the two are not necessarily synonymous, and I think both are required. Now, the thing is, will there be a willingness for reskilling? Because
Yes.
the
Mhm.
percentage that go, that are stayed in their ways said, listen, we've done this like that. We've always done it like this. And they don't try another way. I mean, those are the most dangerous words in business. We've always done it like that. So when you talk about reskilling, those are the very people that need a paradigm shift.
That's
So
right.
I really believe that the mind game is going to become so, so important because that paradigm shift of, listen, I can't just be who I was and I used to be. I now need to adapt and become reskilled at what I used to do. I may have been excellent at what I did, but I need a high level of
Mhm.
proficiency if I want to survive. So that's
That's right.
reskilling.
That's
Upskilling
reskill.
is different. I think aligned with all these new jobs that you were speaking about, upskilling will take it that those who are able to adapt faster will necessarily accelerate into the upskilling part. So I think there's going to be a
Absolutely.
shift.
There's a shift, and you're absolutely right. These are two separate dynamics.
Yeah,
Okay. But the organizations, the companies that are going to continue to compete in the marketplace, especially the global marketplace, are going to have to sit down and figure out. So how do they go about the process of doing that? They got to improve productivity and performance. So that's one of the essential parts of the business case that I believe that companies will be able to take a look at. Effective reskilling, watch this, here's a stat for you.
Okay.
Effective reskilling can yield 6 to 12% productivity uplift as employees acquire new skills to leverage AI and automation technologies. 6 to 12%, just like that, right? There's a cost savings component that comes along with this too, because if you're talking about, you know what the cost are for hiring new people on, it's pretty expensive.
Absolutely. Look, we all know it's cheaper to maintain the current status quo, keep the staff that you have, upskill them, retrain them, than what it is to bring in from the outside. Of course, it always costs you more to bring in from the outside. And this is one of the biggest problems that some companies have. They think it's the quick solution, but it's not.
It
Invest
is not.
in what you already have.
That's right. Yeah, this report says that reskilling existing employees is more cost effective than, of course, recruiting new talent and hiring who already have the skills. So upskilling programs can be 20 to 30% cheaper than hiring external people.
You see, now
So
that's what
you got to do the math to balance it out, of course.
I think it opens the opportunity. This is where a guy like you and me come together, because you're the computer side that understand the system side. I'm the bring sort of the human capital side is. Now, I'm immediately thinking survey. You need to find deep-seated surveys that will give you the results that we're looking for now to decide, do we need to reskill or do we need to upskill? And the only way to do that is to devise multiple surveys that says, what do we want to achieve? Because the thing is, you first always start with, what do you have in your hand? No, there's a good book says, what do you have in your hand? And I think that is a point to start. And I think you and I need to talk surveys. And maybe when we speak again, we can tackle just that one topic and let business leaders think, what if? What about? And I think we can tackle this. So I'm going to take that, put it on the shelf for a next discussion. But I have not forgotten that between you and me, we have to look at the thing of surveys. That'll help us in the future. So, Brady, I'm going to ask you the question. We have this business case. We're talking about reskilling, upskilling, but what is the playbook? Where are we going for the future? What is that playbook? Tell us.
So, best practices means that you really do need to start really, first of all, taking a look. And you talked about surveys just a second ago. And I know we're going to table that for the next conversation, but I'll give you a hint. We got to do effective skills gaps analysis of your people.
Okay.
What are the business needs for the future? What are we looking at, and how's the technology impacting us? How's the market looking? What do we need to do if we're a logistics company? How do we go about the process of developing new tools and technologies for our customers? How do we take our people and make sure that they know these skills and tools and technologies so that we can present them to our customers to gain more business? So you got to do a skills gap analysis first and foremost. Assess your current employee skill sets.
And you know what is the big advantage? You know what's the biggest advantage we have? Every single staff member now has a mobile, which means, you know, in the old times, we used to have people get into the training room, get them to get onto the computer. Not anymore. You now have the app. You just develop the app and say, can everybody by Tuesday morning, 11 o'clock, please complete the following. Boom. And then build in some sort of incentive and said, if we do it by Monday at 2 o'clock, we buy everybody lunch. We do it and sort of give a program that motivates them to do it faster than what you actually wanted.
That's right. That's right.
That'll work.
And that will absolutely work. So, you know, your skills gap analysis, and then leads into investing in personalized learning experiences. So, excuse me, what you just talked about, you could personalize a person's learning experience based on this device, particularly from the standpoint if you develop the gap analysis and you know what skills need to be taught, right? And so, you know, for Larry, it may be one thing, but for Harry, it may be something completely different. Or there may be certain similarities, but some differences. And the differences is where you need to, and they're talking about this in the schools now too, Doc, at least here in the United States, is how do we personalize learning for the kids? Because students, these kids don't always learn at the same level. They come from different backgrounds. They come from different languages, especially here in the United States. It's a conglomerate of what we call it, the melting pot. So some students will, because native English is their native language, they'll learn at a different pace than somebody whose English is a second language.
Quite true. Like I think it's inevitable. We learned that from homeschooling, and that is that
That's right.
a lot of the people started going the route of homeschooling because certain children were just developing faster than what happened in called the government schools. And we found that those children, they didn't just get the 6 distinctions or the 8 distinctions, but some even got 11 or 12 distinctions. Why? They were able to actually cover a wider field because of their ability, but they had to be in an environment that actually helped them. Remember my statement, environment is stronger than will. If
That's
you
right.
put the people in the right environment, it literally will drive the people's behavior. Because if it's a high performance environment, people will target at high performance. If you are in a low productivity environment, people will do as little as possible and take as long as
Right.
they can do it because that is their reward.
That's right. That's right. Doc, you hit the nail on the head. So where's the incentive for creating a culture of continuous learning,
Yes,
right? And so that's another part of the playbook. You got to foster a culture of continuous learning by encouraging employees to take ownership of their own development. So in other words, we see the world changing. Do I change with it or do I just die and go away?
true.
If you don't want to just die and go away, then you need to engage and take the responsibility of yourself for constant learning. I sit down and I read articles because even at this stage of life, I want to keep up with what's going on because as a consultant, we need to be ahead of the game.
True, true.
We need to be on top of all of the trends and the trajectories of technology tools, marketplaces, and
True.
workforce development, et cetera, in order for us to be able to give our clients the best practices and the best ideas to minimize the impact on their businesses, right?
That is true. I
All
mean,
right.
now, if you think about it, you spoke about culture. I think culture is going to be the one place where that gap analysis in terms of what is our culture towards productivity will play a massive role. Because in certain genres, people grew up from a background that I need to do as little as possible in the longest periods I can take just so I can maintain and keep my job. Whereas there's
Yeah,
another school of thought that says, I go the other mile or an extra mile in whatever I do. Whether
that's right.
you ask me or not, I will volunteer it because that's a new way of thinking. Now,
That's
we
right.
literally have these two opposing forces in terms of how will we balance those. I think AI is accelerating that those two will meet sooner than what we anticipate.
Hey, Doc, is no question about it. It's already happening. And I would say that the leadership of an organization becomes absolutely critical for number one, for leaders to buy in to what they need to give their workforces in order to develop, in order to grow, and in order to foster that culture of continuous learning. If they don't, people will, if they're progressive thinking or if they're looking at their future, they don't want to be in an organization that's going to be stagnant.
No,
They're going to want to move to someplace else that's a lot more,
with it.
a faster pace going on, a place where I can grow, a place where I can have impact. I can have social impact as well as economic impact. So it's the two go together. So you got to secure leadership buy-in and make sure that there's support from the top of the organization to champion these reskilling and these upskilling programs for the future. That's part of the playbook as well. And then you and I both know measurement and optimization of program effectiveness. We got to be able to put numbers to it, buddy.
For sure. Like my good friend John Maxwell says, measure, monitor, adjust all the way. Measure, monitor, adjust. If you don't live
That's
with those three, you will definitely fall behind because we need to.
yeah,
And that's that assessment thing. This is because if we don't, the gap actually will outgrow itself before you and I even know it. That's why that gap analysis needs to be kept in tune at all times. need to retain in focus, and we need to say to ourselves, again, how do we augment bringing artificial intelligence and human capital as the joint solution, as those take hands for a better workforce for the future? So just from your side, Brady, anything else in terms of this playbook? If you could just think of 2 or 3 key considerations or key pointers that we need to look at going forward.
Yeah, Doc, I think key best practices for one is to effectively implement. Oh, and this is where companies may lose it. They'll do a gap analysis, but then it's the implementation within their organizations that sometimes don't get the intended result, because they're expecting that, okay, we're going to set aside $5 million for a training program for the folks in manufacturing, right?
Yeah.
But we're just going to throw the money at it. And then we expect everybody to do what they're supposed to do. Well, that's not the case. It has to show support.
Yeah.
You got to be in there with the folks and communicate the importance. And this is again part of change management and transformation. Well, I'll go back to that because that's my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Anytime we have digital transformation taking place within an organization, stakeholder engagement, communications, training and education, metrics will get you to adoption. If you miss any one of those blocks, my friend, what winds up happening is you will not receive the intended business case results or your return on invested capital. Won't happen. Okay, so that's one. Best practices along that line of reskilling and upskilling has to be done from a stakeholder engagement perspective. Involve your people. Let them own it, but get them involved. Because if they own it, if they own their own learning, that fosters that continuous learning process. But you also have to give them some incentive.
Yes.
Like you said. Okay. What's the incentive from a human capital perspective for wanting to learn some of this new stuff? Some people may say, I'm out. It's not for me.
True.
Let me go pour cement.
And point in case here that money is not always the greatest motivator. It is always a short-term motivator. Of course, we all need money. But the moment we have enough money, recognition is way more weighted and important than what money could ever be. Because
absolutely,
the human being by nature wants to be celebrated. Even those who are shy and in the corner, if you just walk past him once and you say, hey, Jonathan, I'm speaking to you. I want to thank you so much for what you did last week. And that will just come alive because that recognition is worth double his salary. So if we just look at the skills, well, that's part of the best practice. So if I could say, as for me, one of the sub points is to actually step up on the human capital intervention and engagement side. That for me is a new adoption. That adoption of bringing human capital into a new level. And specifically, you said best practice. I'm going to bring one from my side. I think experiential learning is the new way of the future. Experiential learning will bring people and put them into simulation, put them into think scrums, put them into soundboarding, put them into places where they are engaged at all times for the possible solution. In other words, it's not just a top-down feeder that you will do this. It is from a bottom up in terms of we see the challenge, we hear the diversity, we hear the challenges going along with it, but now we're in this think tank and this experiential learning of learning how to cope with stress, learning how to cope with trauma. Now they're part of the solution. That's going to make a big difference of people being equipped, whether it's reskilling or upskilling, but experiential learning is going to play a vital role.
Doc, I couldn't have said it better. And 100% agree with you. And I believe that all of these dynamics, all of these parts they're equal. They're not one more against the other. So when you talk about the top down and the bottom up, squeeze it in the middle, that's a benefit to the organization. That's a benefit because the management who worries about the bottom line, they worry about market share, they worry about competition, and they worry about the shifting dynamics with all the technologies and the investments that they have to make to keep up with just the tools and the technology itself. they cannot forget about that workforce that's there to actually implement and drive all these things that get them the results that they're looking for. So they've got to be able to inspire their people, challenge their people, and give them the uplifting opportunities to be engaged in the future. And if I'm promoting it, I'm promoting it like that. Be engaged in the future. Be a part of it, because it means that your ability to be able to have impact,
Mhm.
to grow and develop, be able to have a living in this new 21st century, because by the time we hit the 2050, some of the old stuff that we knew about back in the
True,
1900s.
true, true. Now, that is true. I mean, when you try and explain to your children, look, when you were born, we did not have television. When you were born, we did not have mobile phones. When you
That's
were
right.
born, we did not have a computer in every home. I
That's
mean, if
right.
you just look at what has happened to society and how we have developed, and they just sort of came in growing up with the tool in their hand. That's
That's
why
right.
they lack the communication skills. That's why they lack the connection skills,
That's
etc.,
right.
because they are in a different environment. But it's
That's
going to
right.
be even worse going forward, because now we are, even the oldies like you and me are forced into the artificial intelligence side. It says it is moving so fast. You better keep up, otherwise you are not going to be able to get it. And that's why adaptability for you and me is not an option. It's a must.
It's not. It's not. And Doc, I tell you something, it's an exciting time to be alive. In
Absolutely.
my personal opinion, it's almost as if when you and I were growing up, science fiction magazines or science fiction movies was like, wow, this is the kind of stuff that we would love to be in. And it's taken 50 years for it to get there. But look what's happened within the last 50 years.
True.
All these technology waves and these industrial revolutions,
Yeah.
information revolution, or the technology revolution, and it's just going to continue to grow exponentially. So be a part of it,
Yeah.
get to know it, embrace it, but also have some ethics about it.
True. Do it in such a way that you're respected.
Yeah,
Well,
do it in such a way that you're accountable and you're respected. That's right, Doc.
I see a new emergence. And that is that in the past, we used to look at, say, leadership. We used to focus on the leader. We used to focus on the various kind of leadership styles and types, and that how that basically influenced or not influenced the results of a company. I
Right.
think the future lies in the different types of workers.
That's right.
We are going to see a new development of a different type of worker that will involve what are their strengths, what are their skills, what are their natural behavioral types, what are the value systems. It's really going to be who are we working with to achieve the objectives that we set out to achieve. And we need to get to a point where the vision and the mission of the objectives of companies need to be distilled to the lowest level, number one. Number two, then to discern what are the kind of workers that we basically are developing, growing, and nurturing with that personal development. And we've got the tools, we've got the apps to say this person is developing in this way for the function that of X that is required. So I think that we're seeing a shift. More focus is going to happen into the workforce, whereas in the past it's been leaders, leaders, leaders. I think it
That's
is
right.
a bit of a shift.
Doc, you know what? The last point that I want to make, because this is very, very key. What you just said, here are some of the companies that are doing exactly what you're talking about. Okay. Amazon.
Okay.
Amazon said, oh, of course, Jeff Bezos and those guys have been building the future for what, 30 years now, right? They set up Amazon Machine Learning University.
Okay.
Over 2,000 employees have been reskilled with machine learning expertise, right? Accenture, you know them,
Yes.
one of the big four consulting companies.
Yes.
They've got something they call a connected learning platform. And so in 2021, when they saw a lot of this stuff coming on the horizon, they invested nearly $1 billion
Wow.
to reskill over 700,000 employees through a connected learning platform that offered personalized learning paths. Remember, we just talked about personalizing the learning?
Yep.
Okay. On-demand courses, virtual collaboration spaces. Amazing. Ericsson. People forget about Ericsson, one of the first real major mobile technology companies, right?
Yeah.
They come up with the AI and automation upskilling program, where the program is part of Ericsson's multi-year strategy to upskill its telecommunication experts on AI and automation technologies. Verizon's doing the same thing. Bank of America, this is the finance industry. Career development initiatives for 40,000 employees annually, providing onboarding experiences, training opportunities, and career development support for AI. So you see these companies that know they're going to be impacted by it, whether it's healthcare, whether it's finance, whether it's technology, and they're getting ahead of the curve and they're putting their money where their mouth is. If others don't do it, these will be the companies that continue to grow and expand and be able to just dominate. The key is to dominate in their market space. So Henry Ford said something a while back, and I'm gonna leave you with this thought. Henry Ford said, anyone who stops learning is old, whether 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. The greatest thing in life is to keep your mind young.
What year was that, more or less? Do you know?
I think it was like an early 1900s.
Absolutely. 1929,
Early
1940, in
1900s.
those years. And already, because remember, he was a visionary.
That's
The
right.
only thing was, he's one of the old school visionaries. When they said to him that we need different color vehicles, he said, we will stick to black, and black is the only vehicle we will have, because he refused to move on. And I think,
Right.
therefore, you now see there's where the hybrid comes in terms of that you take the true artificial intelligence, and that is that we will have to migrate to a new level, and that is that we all have to keep on learning. But the human element that says, I need to become adaptable because I need to change with the times. Because the only thing that is definite is change. That's my last word for tonight.
Yeah. Bravo, Doc.
Brady, I want to thank you so much. There's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show in terms of unleashing potential. So I just want you to basically point your finger at the screen and say to the listeners, this is Brady Speller talking, and remember, go for it.
This is Brady Speller talking. I've been there, I've done that, but I'm going to continue to grow and develop because I love growing and I love technology and I love people.
And this is Doc N looking at you saying, as long as I'm alive, I'm going to continue shaping you for significance. Thank you for being on the show. Unleash your potential. Take care.
See you, Doc.